Darkcast Network. Welcome to the dark side of podcasts.
When someone realizes they are lost, hope becomes their first anchor. They listen for footsteps, scan the horizon, and imagine a voice calling their name, believing that somewhere someone is looking for them, and that person will arrive in time. The hope is comforting, almost necessary, but as the hours stretch on and into days, and the silence remains unbroken, it begins to shift into doubt. What if no one knows where they are? What if help never comes? The question lingers, heavy and unavoidable, until the truth finally settles in. Rescue is not guaranteed. In that moment, hope does not disappear. It changes. It turns inward, transforming into resolve. The undeniable reality is that survival depends on our own choices, our own strength, and our own willingness to move forward alone, no longer waiting to be found. For there is an undeniable reality that some just have to save themselves. Welcome back to Tragedy with a View. Hello, welcome back. I am your host, Kayla, and we have 3 episodes left of 2026. 2025. We're not even into 26. It's until 2026. What am I saying? Man, okay. What a year. What a year it's been. I don't have a whole lot to say for housekeeping-wise this episode, so I'm just going to go ahead and get rolling into the story. In northern New Mexico, right at the base of the U.S. Rocky Mountains, is the Pecos Wilderness area, covering 223,667 acres, or roughly 350 square miles of land. It is the second largest wilderness area in the state of New Mexico. Managed by the U.S. Forest Service, the Pecos Wilderness is part of both the Carson National Forest, which was established in 1908, and the Santa Fe National Forest, which was established in 1915. The Pecos Wilderness ranges in elevation from 5,000 feet to 13,103 feet, or 1,524 meters to 3,993 meters. This area features mountains, canyons, mesas, pine forest, and towering aspen trees. The area holds miles and miles of trails that take you through a wide variety of terrain to peaks, ridgelines, slopes, lakes, valleys, and meadows. Tourist sites actually boast that the Pecos is the gateway to the outdoors, so there is no trouble understanding what draws people to this area, especially Shannon Baruth. It was early October, and fall is just starting to creep in. The air holds a cool breeze that ruffles the leaves, and it gives you this breath of fresh air feeling no matter how long you are outside. The temperatures are comfortable during the day, but when the sun goes down, they start to plummet. No matter what season you are out there or anywhere in the wilderness, it is always best to take a look at the weather, being mindful of the terrain, and go prepared. Especially though in the Pecos, because the closest town is about 45 minutes to an hour drive away. For Shannon, this meant that she was going to the trailhead campground the night before, which was a Friday, stay the night, and then start hiking the next morning, which would be Saturday. She planned to hike all day and then stay the night at the campground again Saturday night, and then head back home on Sunday. And you know what? This means that she was actually going prepared. She had warm clothing and shelter with her. She is bringing food, but she is really only planning to car camp at the trailhead, but still she pays attention to all the details. With her, she also has a fleece sweater, a shell jacket, a wool hat, 5 quarts of water with water purifiers, a filter, and a first aid kit. And part of the reason that she was so prepared was that she had a medical condition that required her to kind of have some downtime or lie low for periods of time. So she didn't want to go hiking without being prepared for potentially taking an extra day out there. So she had enough food for 3 days, and she also brought 4 days of her medicine with her. Again, she planned ahead. She thought things through, exactly what you are supposed to do when you are preparing to go out into the wilderness. She told some friends and family about her weekend plans, and then she looked at the weather and was aware that there was a storm coming in Sunday night. So she made adjustments to her plan so that way she could be well out of the area before that storm rolled in. And with everything in mind, she packed up and headed to the Pecos Wilderness area. In the passenger seat with her was her 24-pound mixed breed service dog named Annie. Annie, from the very few pictures that I actually saw of her, looks like a mixed breed, but she almost has like the eyes and the tail of a Shiba, but just really, really smart eyes. And there's just this little bit of a curl to the tail, and roughly the same size of a Shiba. So who knows, really, when it comes to dogs? You never know. So Shannon's drive is uneventful, and she ends up staying the night at the trailhead as she had planned, and everything is going smooth. When she got up the next morning, she was kind of getting ready to go out on the trails when she saw another camper who happened to have a Garmin InReach with them. Now, for those of you who don't know, the InReach is this really cool little device that has a satellite GPS in it, and it allows you to send messages. It can be like an SOS. It tracks your location, and it is very accurate at pinpointing locations. I myself have followed several people on Instagram that have made their way through or along the Pacific Crest Trail or the Appalachian Trail, and they've had enough commentary about the Garmin InReach that it's just such a cool little device. And one person that I followed in particular, I don't know if it was her or her hiking partner needed to be evacuated, and they used the InReach to help facilitate that, and it saved that person's life. So I strongly suggest that anyone that's going outdoors be prepared in some form. The Garmin InReach, when I look them up, you can find this product or very similar ones in the ranges of a couple $100s to several $100s. And then for specifically the InReach, there are monthly plans that are between $8 and $50, depending on what you want to allow this little device to do. When talking with this hiker, they were able to use the InReach to confirm that the weather was still not expected to come until Sunday night. Now, I don't know for sure how old Shannon is or when specifically this takes place. The bulk of this information I'm actually getting from a backpacker article that I read, and they did this story in 2023. And I saw somewhere that the dates 2021 and 2022 were mentioned, but I didn't see anything confirming that. But in 2023, when Backpacker interviewed her, she mentions that she is 47 years old. And I don't know if that means that she's 47 years old at the time of their interview. I don't know if she meant that she was 47 years old when this took place, but she's somewhere in the mid to upper 40s during this event. She also has adult children, but I'm always very careful when it comes to context clues where somebody's trying to give age based on how old their children are, because there are people who have children when they are in high school. There are people who have children when they are 40. So somebody telling me that they have adult children only really means like, okay, so they could be in their 30s or they could be in their 80s. Beyond that, she is healthy, she is active, she is smart, and she has her service dog with her, and she brought extra gear with her just in case weather moved in sooner than expected. So she's got all of these plans, and she's thinking ahead, and she's planning ahead, and she's doing everything right. And on top of all of this, she has hiked here many times before. She set out down a trail that she was very familiar with. It was about 3 miles long, and that took her through a meadow where she was heading to a specific spot that she knew that she could get cell phone reception. And she wanted to go here to send her family a few photos and just double check the weather for herself. This meadow that she was going through also was a cattle grazing area. And as she and Annie were making their way through the meadow, they kept having to kind of quickly run up to the tree line because the cows were being aggressive. And I'm not sure if they were just like stomping their feet or if there was any charging involved or what specifically was happening. But she and Annie decided to go up into the tree line and make their way around the cattle. And as they were doing this, the cattle actually were kind of moving on and leaving the meadow. And so Shannon and Annie moved their way back down into this meadow. But then as they're walking out of the corner of her eye, Shannon sees a little bit of movement that she's caught off guard by. And it also might be an explanation for why the cattle were behaving so aggressively. Just over the brush in the meadow, she could make out the distinct shape of mountain lion ears. Shannon grabs a hold of Annie and she starts talking to the mountain lion. She's saying, "Hi there, I'm really sorry. We are on our way." Just kind of making it so that way she's making some sort of noise and is not only talking to the mountain lion to alert that animal that they are there, but she's also trying to keep herself calm. She's trying to keep Annie calm. And as she's doing this, she's holding Annie and backing away with her. And as she's backing away, she notices that the mountain lion isn't following her, which is good news. To be honest, it's good news that they saw the mountain lion to begin with because they are just so good at hiding and stalking their prey without being seen that the fact that it poked its head up to look at her indicates that maybe it was a bit more curious than trying to find some food. But the bad news is that the trail that she had been intending to be on is nowhere in sight. Finally, she finds a trail marker and heads in that direction, but instead of it being a trail marker, she finds that it is a sign that reads the trail is no longer being maintained. And when she looks around, there is no clear sign of a trail anywhere, except for a spot where it appears that 3 trails are coming together. Taking her map and compass out of her bag, she starts trying to figure out specifically where she is at. According to the map, if she goes in the direction she thinks she needs to go, she is only going to go higher in elevation, which is not what she wants to do. She was not supposed to be doing much climbing at all on these trails that she specifically wanted to be on, so she decides to try to backtrack and retrace her steps to get back to where she wants to be. As she does this, she ends up running into another person who mentions that they found a trail sign that had been knocked down and they put it back up. Shannon should have worked her way down the trail towards that sign. She even admits this, but instead she decided to backtrack her own path instead. By now it was 1 p.m. and Shannon and Annie had hiked 9 miles, but Shannon still thinks that she knows where she is now. But she is starting to consider some other options because she doesn't know that they would be able to get on the right path and to her destination and then back to the trailhead before the sun goes down. And the last thing that she wants to do is be hiking in the dark. So after some heading in the right direction, she decides to set up her tent. She gets out her fleece blanket and she starts settling in for the night. She gets her dinner going. She feeds Annie. And then she is relaxing and planning what the next day will be, which at this point is starting to look like more just going back to the trailhead and not trying to get to her original destination. And as she's sitting here contemplating, she sees lightning flash in the distance. The wind begins to pick up, and even though she set up her tent in a little grove of oak trees, the wind is hitting her tent hard. Then comes the rain, and before long, it turns into snow. Now, something you should note is that Shannon's tent is actually a mylar tent, which is kind of this super thin emergency shelter type tent. It is made out of that like foil reflective material, and it really doesn't do anything to actually shelter her from the rain and snow. So they do what they can. Annie curls up with Shannon under her blanket and jacket, and they just try to go to sleep. The next morning, in the calm after the storm, Shannon could hear a river running. Realizing that this was likely the Pecos River, this also made it dawn on her that they were nowhere near where she thought they were.
Pull up a chair and sit a spell. Here at Mountain Murders Podcast, we're pouring straight from Pappy's jug and spinning true crime tales from deep in the hollers of Appalachia to the bustling cities up and down the East Coast.
It's hootin', it's hollering, it's murder with a side of the alternative.
Woo!
We dig into the dark history, the outlaws, the secrets, and the downright strange cases that'll make your hair stand on end.
Holla! So whether you're a city slicker or a ridge runner, come join us by the firelight. Hit play and let's raise a little ruckus. Mountain Murder style. Yee-haw!
Let's get it, boy.
As she started to hike, Shannon was just being really positive and telling herself that they were going to find their way out today. Everything was fine. There was nothing to get worked up over. And then she slipped on a patch of ice, landing so hard that her water bottle, headlamp, and cell phone popped out of their pockets and went sliding down the slope. But Shannon wasn't super concerned about this because she had backups, which we're going to come to that later towards the end of the episode. So as they walk, Shannon keeps going to look up at a ridge to look around and see where they are to kind of get her bearings. But everything is now covered in snow and Annie is cold and limping. Shannon knows the situation she is in. She had survival skill knowledge, enough that she had taught classes and was a volunteer rescuer. She stops what she's doing. She finds a good place to rest and she again sets up camp. She gets some water and she's checking Annie's paw. And this is all Sunday afternoon, the same Sunday that they are supposed to be getting a severe storm. And Shannon is beginning to get a little bit worried. But she tries to keep calm, collect her mind. She is telling herself that she's not going to press that internal panic button. But she does indulge in the feelings a bit. She starts to record messages for her children, telling them how proud she is of all that they have accomplished in this life, that she is grateful to be their mom, and all that she hopes they get out of their future. By this point, Shannon is cold. She is shivering, but still, the next thing on her list is to get to the creek for some more water. It is snowing and windy, and as she settles in for her second night, which, again, Sunday, she starts to make plans for how she is getting herself and Annie out of there the next day. Monday comes and goes without a whole lot to add. It was still snowing and cold, and Shannon's muscles were cramping and spasming real bad due to this. This would have been the first day that she was overdue, so she is a little hopeful, but she's not holding on to that hope that anybody is looking for her yet. Not because she doesn't trust her family to not alert anyone or not try to find her, but she was taught to operate as if she needed to save herself. It isn't until Tuesday that Shannon's daughter, Cassidy, finally looks at her mom's text message that was sent to her on Friday detailing her plans. Her aunt had called and texted her saying, "Call me back ASAP." And Cassidy was actually in a meeting during this time, so she had to step out of the meeting to call her aunt back. And that's when they realized that Shannon was missing. She was overdue. She hadn't updated anyone saying that she was back home, which is what she normally does. As Cassidy is talking to her aunt lets her know that her stepfather is calling the police, and right away the police go to the trailhead. And here they find her car. They can tell that she has camped in it, and there is no sign of a struggle or anything to indicate that something bad had happened there at the trailhead, so she must be out on the trails somewhere. Back in the wilderness, Shannon is blowing her whistle as she is walking, just hoping that somebody will hear her. She is trying to get out of the canyon that she found herself in, so she had to cross this river multiple times, attempting to do just that. The walls of the canyon are super steep, and there wasn't a clear way to be able to climb out. She didn't trust that she herself would be able to get over the canyon walls, but how would she get Annie over the walls as well? So imagine almost like the Narrows in Zion type canyon where it's following this river. And there's little parts of the bank of the river that is exposed at this point in time along the river. So she's able to kind of walk along that. Every now and then she has to hop across because that bank ends. But there's not a lot of options for her at this point other than to continue following the river. This is kind of when it really sinks in that Shannon has no idea where she is at. And as she turns a bend, she looks up and she sees a bear. It's just kind of sitting along the river and it's not really seeming to be startled by her. And Shannon is like, I need to continue to go that way, but I'm not going to go that way with the bear there. So she and Annie try to sit down and wait out the bear for a few minutes. But after, it just continues to not move and there being no way for them to go around it, she decides to just go back the other way. As they go, Annie ends up running off to the side, and this is when Shannon notices there's a small stream coming down, and it's coming from a steep ravine, but not so steep that she and Annie can't climb it. So when Shannon starts to follow Annie, she gets up to the top and she can see landmarks up ahead, and then the glorious sound of a helicopter. Shannon feels hope swell in her chest, and she's excited about this, but she fails to get the attention of the helicopter. We actually have no idea if this was a search helicopter or not. It was about 4 p.m. on Tuesday, so this is her 4th day in the wilderness. Shannon finds a spot with some wood and pine needles, and she is able to make a shelter out of this as they weather their 4th night alone. Wednesday morning, Shannon gets out her map again. She is studying the landmarks that she sees ahead and figures out where she is. She sees that there is a connection from the landmarks to the meadow that she had initially gotten lost in. And so she's like, okay, that's the way we go. She ends up running into a fly fisherman at this point who she stopped and talked to, and she told him that she was trying to get back to this meadow, and he confirmed that she was going in the right direction. And I don't know about you here, but if it were me, it's not me, but if it were me, I would be like, listen, I've been out here for 4 days. I only intended to be out here for 1 day. I'm tired. I haven't had real shelter. I'm pretty much out of food at this point. I'm cold. We went through not one, but 2 storms, and I don't know where I am. Can I sit with you until you decide to leave, or will you help me get back to the freaking parking lot? But that's me and not Shannon. Shannon takes some of the Cliff Bars that he offers her, and she just continues on. She makes it back to the meadow. She finds the trail that she had been looking for all along, and she is finally getting back to the parking lot. And when she finally gets there, she notices that there are no search and rescue, no police, no one. But as she starts driving home, she decides to make a pit stop at the Santa Fe National Forest Ranger Station just to let them know that she is safe, just in case somebody did report her missing. She learns that they were in the process of organizing a search to start later that day. They had been planning to do a ground search, and a state trooper was actually driving by when he saw and recognized her car that was parked at the ranger station. And so he stopped in to talk to her and see what was happening, and then he ended up talking to her. When she calls her family, she learns that the entire family, who is living kind of all over in different states, are all flying back in to help look for her and Annie. Here's where I want to address the cell phone thing, because, okay, she slips and she falls and her cell phone pops out of its pocket and goes sliding down the slope to a place where she can't retrieve it. And I saw references that she had a backup cell phone, and I'm very curious about that. I'm not dismissing, I'm not doubting that she had 2 cell phones. Like, she clearly had lost something and then was still able to function with what she had. But I'm very curious who all has 2 working cell phones I'm assuming that they have different numbers, because it's not like, in 2010, you could take the SD card out of one phone and put it in another phone and like all of your stuff would go with it. But now that all kind of happens electronically, like on its own, separately from, like, you don't need the other device to be able to get stuff onto the new device. I'm just very curious if it was like a situation where she was able to, with no cell phone reception though, get all of her stuff from one phone to another, or if she had two like completely separate cell phone plans, or if it was like one of those, like one is a pay as you go phone and the other one is like a normal phone. I'm just curious. I have questions because to me, it is odd to have two cell phones. But again, that is me. We've already discussed the differences between Shannon and I. So anyways, she has this phone, and as she gains reception, she also notices that the text or the voice messages that she had been leaving for her family, telling them essentially goodbye. I'm so proud of you. I'm so glad to have been in your life. I love you and I wish you well. She has all of these messages that she realizes once she gets reception are going to be sent to those family members. So she tries deleting some of them. Not all of them get deleted before they are sent. And her daughter specifically states that she received the message after being alerted that Shannon was alive and well, and still the message was very difficult to listen to. For Shannon, though, she did make a few mistakes, which she happily acknowledged. This hike turned into something of a tale that she and Annie will be able to share together. It was them together that allowed Shannon to keep her head in the game and get them both out together. Their fight for survival was theirs alone, and they did it. So that's the story of Shannon and Annie, the girls who head out into the Pecos Wilderness, got themselves lost, and then saved themselves. Okay, thanks for listening. We will talk next week. Bye. What is life without close calls with disaster? Thank you for listening. Don't forget to follow the podcast to be the first to hear the now weekly episodes. Join our subscription on Patreon, Apple, or Spotify today and immerse yourself in the haunting beauty of the great outdoors. For around $4 a month, you'll get exclusive access to the first episode of each month and early access to all other episodes, showcasing the morbid and mysterious side of nature. Please reach out with story requests, and if you have your own story, please email tragedywithaview@gmail.com for a chance to have your story featured on a later episode. Again, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.